Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of On the Move with the Caravan with Jim Powers. Jim, how are we doing today?
Doing fantastic. I mean, we're in the midst of now all the except for boys soccer who starts districts next week, but my gosh, just you know, I know you love volleyball, but I mean,
Yeah.
you talk about just the matches last night around the area. Pius
Incredible.
got wow. I mean, and then the one I was at with Eureka and Lafayette was just, I mean, I've never seen an atmosphere like I saw, last night over at Lurkin and Lafayette for that district final. But it's so cool to see that for these kids that have worked so hard all year long, and to see packed houses and just full gyms, and that way people can appreciate exactly what these kids have worked hard for all year long. But yeah, and now football playoffs start. It's going to be such an outstanding, district run for a lot of these teams. I mean, when the brackets came out, a couple surprises here and there, but I think a lot of the seeds held true coming out of last weekend. And, it's just going to set up to be just an absolute meat grinder for a lot of these teams. But I tell you what, I think St. Louis can be well represented in the state championships, in the early December.
100% agree. And I think you're right. We talked about the seedings and the standings and how they were going to be affected by the week 9 results. But at the same time, I mean, I think everything's kind of fall where it needs to fall. It's going to set up some really, really good semifinal games in some of these districts.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, gosh, you've got so many possibilities that we'll get into. Hillsborough, North County may be hooking up again for the second time. A Seckman Marquette matchup in the district semifinal, I think a lot of people would be excited to see. I mean, yeah, you just look up and down, where everybody's seated out at and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, there was a couple minor adjustments here and there, but when I looked at it on Thursday and then I went back on Saturday night and looked at everything, really not a whole lot of shuffling that took place. And that's what you kind of like to see. I mean, I know the one district that a lot of us were looking at is that St. Mary's district in 4, because some had a chance to jump them. And believe it or not, that game, St. Mary's and Luther North was tied at the half. And all the Summit people knew that. Well, guess what? Summit comes out and goes down 14-0 to Parkway West and has to battle all the way back and score with 6 seconds remaining to even put themselves into a conversation for that 2 seed. But by that point, St. Mary's had won, so it was a mute point. But still, everybody, we talk about this. Coaches know what's going on. I mean, they know exactly what's happening. I was talking to John Diffley before the game over at Summit. He goes, yeah, they're tied at half. I'm like, you got a game in 5 minutes and you're worried about what's going on there. You need to be worried about what's happening in front of you here in 5 minutes. I mean, but that's the beauty of the playoff system and the excitement that everybody gets and the opportunity now to where everybody starts with a clean slate. I know a lot of people don't like having everybody in the playoffs. I'm okay with it because it gives everybody a fresh start. It gives everybody a chance to start at 0-0. And now, whoever wins 5 games in the next 5-6 weeks, that's who your state championship's going to be. And that's the really cool thing about it.
Yeah, and I think all these classes. I mean, if you can come out and first off win your district, which is going to be tough no matter what class you're in, and then obviously advance it, you've had a really successful season. This is going to shape up to be one of the better, I would have to say, state tournaments. And I mean, even going back to your district semifinals and finals games, we're going to have some really good matchups coming up.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I just said something to a friend of mine that this year may be the best year that we've seen on the high school scene on football. And a couple years ago, you got to remember a lot of these kids, these underclassmen, they lost their spring sports, and you almost kind of felt like, okay, how are they going to bounce back from this? Well, I tell you what, I think these kids came out of this a lot stronger, a lot mentally better, because they figured out that you don't really miss something until it's gone. And a lot of those kids realize that, over the last couple of years with COVID. And I just been so impressed, and just not football, in every sport across the board, with how well the kids have responded, how they've really battled back. And once again, I just think this fall has been the best fall that I've seen in many years. And I'm just not talking football, I'm talking across the board with our fall sports. And it's been so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and you're right. It's something that you kind of put things in perspective when things are gone, that you didn't have. I think there was a song in the 80s about that by Cinderella.
Oh, yeah,
Anyway,
something like that. We're
so
showing our age again. There it is,
right,
ladies and
right.
gentlemen.
So let's jump into the state rankings. They came out on Monday, and let's look at Class 6. I know we're getting ready to go into the state tournament. Everybody's 0-0 technically, but Jim, what do we have with the rankings here?
Yeah, in Class 6, and once again, you're seeing the battle up top. You're seeing Liberty North and CBC, collision course, so to say, when it comes down to the state semifinal. Because remember, this year in 6, it's District 1 versus District 4, then 2 versus 3. So those two teams are in an absolute collision course right now. But I'm telling you, CBC does not have an easy out. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. Nixa, nice bounce back win after losing in week 8. I still say that they're the team to beat on that side of the bracket, but they're going to have some tough competition down there. Troy playing some terrific football right now. Marquette, once again, not going to be an easy out. And then Seckman finally cracks into the top 10. Finally, and it was great to see that. They deserve to be there. They've had a terrific year. Their lone loss of the year is to Valley Catholic, who is number 2 in Class 3. You've got to give, what they've done a lot of credit. So, not a lot of moving and shaking there, so to say. DeSmet drops out after losing to East St. Louis, what you expected. But I'm telling you what, they're going to be a tough out in the district. I mean, they're going to have to play Troy, probably in the district final, and that'll set up to be just a really, really good ball game. The only advantage there is they would have to go to Troy to play that game. So because Troy got the 1 seed on that side. So not a lot of holes shaking and, moving around there. But I tell you what, some great teams there in Class 6.
Yeah, I agree, and it's so nice to see Seckman after they've had a couple of nice seasons, and then obviously this season just running roughshod through their schedule, and they played Valley Catholic extremely tough. That wasn't some kind of game where Valley walked in and just whipped them or anything like that. That was a good competitive game, and Valley Catholic has shown that they legitimately belong in the category as one of the best programs in the state,
Oh,
because
without
they
a
can
doubt.
compete with other schools that are much, much, much bigger than them.
Oh, without a doubt. And what a lot of people need to understand, that Valley Catholic second game was tied
Yeah.
in the third quarter. And then Valley does what Valley does. And that's just, they took control and they didn't look back. But absolutely. In Valley, once again, they are. I mean, when you look at state champions, when you look at how many they've won, Webb City, I mean, they are absolutely one of the conversation pieces, along with the Lamar in Class 2, on just the best programs in the state of Missouri. Now, once again, Valley's going to have a tough road, and we'll get into that here in a few minutes, because at one point, they're on the same side as Cardinal Ritter. They're going to have that matchup someplace. But the one good thing possibly is, I believe that game would be at Valley. So, you at least get Ritter off the turf down in the St. John, in front of your home crowd. So, but yeah, Valley Catholic, terrific. But I just love the fact that Seckman got put in. They deserve it. They've played a whale of a schedule. They've done everything that they need to do. Now they've got to get ready, because you're playing up in the 6, and you're not going to have an easy out moving forward.
No, and they're going to have that district's incredibly difficult. But I mean, think about the great football that's going to be played. Like we just said, it's come semifinals, finals. And, hey, if you can get out of your district in there, you got a pretty good shot.
Oh, without a doubt. And once again, if you can get out of any district, you got to put yourself into a conversation for getting out to Columbia. Class 6, once again, a little bit different, because you only have 4 districts. You win your district, you're automatically in the state semifinal. And then all bets are off. It's the best
Yeah.
4 teams in the state. Who can win to get out to Columbia to play the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and that's what these teams are angling for in that Class 6 rankings.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And then looking at Class 5, your favorite class, what do we see there, Jim?
Mike, you know what? And once again, everybody holding court. Carthage 1, Hal 2, Holt 3. Holt and Camdenton flip-flop because Camdenton lost in the last seconds this past Friday night. So they flip-flop, but you still got a Lebanon team that's there. You got a Webb City team that's there. When you look at the right side of the Class 5 bracket, you have 4 of the top 6 teams in the state of Missouri on the right side. With Hal, you got Hal, Camdenton, Lebanon, Webb City. I've said it, I'll continue to say it, and I will say it on the state championship broadcast in December. You win Class 5, you're the best team in the state of Missouri. And then you look at MICDS, you got Eureka. Those 2 teams could match up in the state sectional. I mean, once again, there's not an easy out. And the team that nobody's talking about, Jackson.
Yeah.
They're not ranked. They've got 3 losses. But guess what? They've got the experience of being in the state championship. They've got the experience of being a part of it and making a long run. You absolutely cannot count them out. And I know a lot of people are, once again, you may get a Eureka MICDS, district final, but then you win that district, you're going to have to hook up with the Jackson team most likely. And nobody wants that. Especially
nobody wants to play Jackson.
And especially if you got to play them down south in the pit. I mean, that's where it just gets fun. And, those teams ranked, and then you got Helias and Green Valley. I mean, Class 5 is just a gauntlet, and it's just going to be so much fun to watch here over the next month and a half.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see, like you said, how Jackson's going to fare. They obviously have to win their way out to play in the state tournament, but just to see if they can get back and if everybody just kind of overlooked them. I'm sure that's some good locker room material. If I'm the Indians coach, for sure.
Brett Eckley knows that locker room stuff. Believe me, he's putting every article right here on the whiteboard that they're saying that they got no shot. He's putting this top 10 ranking that the media put out and saying, okay, this is it. Where do you want to go? And that's what great coaches do. And Brett does such a terrific job down there with that program. And, they're fun to watch. And once again, everything sets up for them through their district, but then it gets brutal from that point. And once again, I still think that District 2 with MICDS, Ladue, Eureka, I mean, my gosh, that I know you don't like soccer, but in the World Cup, there's always that group. And they call it the group of death, basically. And, that district right there, that is a district. You got Lafayette in there, too. So MICDS is going to have to beat Lafayette, then Eureka, then you're going to get Jackson. If I'm MICDS and I'm Fred Bouchard, I'm like, what did I do to deserve this silliness that's going to take place? I mean,
one too much, I guess,
Oh, yeah. I mean, my gosh, it's brutal. And that's just, you look at the house side. Once again, with 4 teams that are ranked in the top 5 on the right side of the bracket. It's just, once again, bulletin board material all aside, this is the fun time of the year. And once again, every team ranked there is great, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, 100% agree, bud. All right, so Class 4, let's talk about them. What do you think?
Kearney is loaded. 9-0. They're a terrific team, and year in and year out, you gotta put them in conversations, and they deserve to be number 1 right now. St. Mary's is sitting right behind them in the number 2 slot. You got a Smithville team that's very talented. Union. What about this district? You got St. Mary's, you got Summit, who's 7, you got Union, that's 5. Once again, a district where there's 3 top 10 teams in the state all playing in the same district. And then you got Vashon, who's on the other side of the bracket, licking their chops because they're the 2 seed. And their path is actually pretty doggone easy to get through to the quarterfinal. And you got to remember, this is a Vashon team that beat Kirkwood earlier this year. This is a Vashon team that played up a lot of Class 6 teams. You got to watch out for what Will Franklin's got cooking over there, man. I'm telling you, they are a lot of fun to watch, and them sitting in that number 10 slot. So, Class 4, tough bracket, but a lot of great local flavors sitting there. And once again, they're going to be a lot of fun. And haven't mentioned Hillsboro. A lot of people thinking right now that the Hawks have what it takes to make it through. And boy, you look at how that's going to stack up. You're going to have a possibility of Hillsboro playing North County for the second time. You're going to have whoever wins that game is going to have to take on whoever comes out of that mess in District 2 with St. Mary's, Summit, Union. It just doesn't get any better than that.
Right. And I think, if we look at it, that, Hillsboro being what they are, if they get Romaine back,
I was just going to say that.
That's going to make the biggest difference when it comes to this team and whether or not they can compete and move further further along. Now, my pick here is you got to look, like you said, at Bashan. Bashan has the experience. They played the competition experience from last year and how far they made it. So could be the dark horse in the whole race right now.
Oh, without a doubt. And you just hit it. I was going to mention, getting Austin Romaine back. Number one, for Hillsboro, you got a bye week this week. That's huge. That gives you an extra week to get his hand better. If they can get him out of the cast, or at least into a soft cast, and he's able to get back into that offense, I know he's playing defense and he's doing a great job, but I know they need him running the football. This is a team that was averaging over 280 yards rushing on the season. And they've still done a nice job without him over the last couple of weeks. But I tell you what, I still say if they had him against Ritter a few weeks ago, I think that's a different story in a big-time fashion. But if they can get him back offensively, they are a scary, scary out.
Yeah, they're pretty good whether they have him or not. But I think he's a difference maker for sure. If we look at Class 3, speaking of Ritter, they obviously come in number 1. They're obviously one of the best teams in the state, no matter what class. But let's talk about Class 3.
Yeah, and once again, you look at the top 2. You got Ritter, you got Valley. Those two teams are going to match up most likely in the sectional round. Then you look at Pleasant Hill, Lutheran St. Charles, and 4. This is a team, 6-3. They're getting healthy at the right time, and that's what they needed to do. You got Maryville, Lutheran North coming off of the loss this past week. Park Hill Central sitting there. What about that district? Valley and Park Hill Central. You're looking at a rematch there in a district championship game. Then you look out to Kansas City with St. Pius and then Reed Springs. Great classification. A lot of fun teams to watch. And this is, once again, a lot of people are anointing Cardinal Ritter as the state champion, but they don't have an easy road because Valley's not going to be an easy out. Then you look at the bottom side with Reed Springs, and then you look over on the other side with the Lutheran St. Charles team getting healthy. Also, you look at a Maryville team that's talented, but you've also got to beat Lutheran North in your own district. So, once again, so many variables that'll happen in that, but Class 3 is going to be a lot of fun to watch. But Cardinal Ritter, right now, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to put him there. But will I be surprised if we see an all St. Louis final between Ritter and Lutheran St. Charles? Absolutely not, because it could very well happen.
Yeah, and that's going to be a cool one to watch. Now, I'm very curious to see how Valley Catholic now in their third year playing up, how they compete. I think it's going to be that matchup. If they win out, both teams win out, is going to be an epic one for sure.
Oh, without a doubt, you're going to see two total contrasting styles. You're going to see a Cardinal Ritter team that just loves to chuck it all over the place. It's the stereotypical West Coast offense. And then you got a Valley Catholic team that, guess what? We're going to punch you in the mouth. We're going to try and run between the tackles, and you got to stop us. That's what Judd does down there, and that's what he's going to continue to do. That's why he's built a terrific program.
It seemed to work, for how many years now. So
between him and put it this way, and I need to do the homework on this, but I would love to see year in and year out when Valley and when Webb City have won their state championships, how much they actually threw the ball. It's not a lot. It's less than 100 yards average. But nobody can stop the veer down at Webb City, and nobody can stop the power inside game that Valley's got. So, if it works, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely. And that's coming from a guy who runs the flex all the time in basketball. So
And I love the flex, by the way. Okay, Kyle Bohr, I said it once again. I love the flex.
there we go. All right, so let's look at Class 3 District 2 and look at some of our matchups here. And speaking as we did a little bit, we're going to highlight some of our the districts that you kind of set. Now, all of the districts, in my opinion, are probably pretty good, especially once you get to the semifinals, finals, as I mentioned before. But we highlighted several of them. You highlighted several of them here. So Jim, let's talk about Class 3 District 2 and why you feel like that's a cool district to take a look at.
Well, number one, you've got some of our local teams, sitting in there. Ritter's is the number one seed. They'll get the bye week this week. But then you look at Herculaneum. What a great season for those kids. And it's great to see how they've bounced back. They've had a couple lean years. And I think Jackson Deering is one of the top quarterbacks in the area. He's got more they can get the ball off to. You've got Maloney that's playing, great defense. They're going to get a Bayless team. They should take care of their business there. Then, you're probably going to see U City. Derek Colquitt's done a terrific job taking over that program. But unfortunately, that's where the road ends, I think, because of Cardinal Ritter. And once again, Ritter just playing at another level than anybody else in that district. But, for Herky to, number one, get the 3 seed, host a district game, which they haven't done in a few years, it's just an awesome, awesome thing for those kids to be able to play a playoff game in front of their home crowd before they're going to have to go to U City probably next Saturday and play on a Saturday afternoon because U City doesn't have lights. So, but once again, great district. But unfortunately, you've got the number one team in the state sitting there in Cardinal Ritter. But I just love what, Herky's done this year. I think it's been a terrific year for those kids.
Yeah, I agree too. And I'm curious to see is that if they take care of business against Bayless, what they're going to be able to do against U City. But after that, it doesn't really matter. I think Ritter's going to be moving right along and heading to the state playoffs. So let's look at Class 4 District 1. That was one of our other highlighted districts. And Hillsborough being the number one seed and getting the bye, as you mentioned earlier, which is going to be huge for them and trying to get Romaine healthy. But why don't you tell us a little bit about that one?
Well, you know what? You've got Hillsborough, you've got, Farmington, you got North County, you got Festus. Hillsborough's 3-0 against teams in that district. But I know a lot of people, and no disrespect to DeSoto, to Festus, to Sykeston, and to Perryville. Everybody's got Hillsborough, North County, round 2 circled as a district final, as well they should.
Right.
They're by far the best 2 teams in that district. That's why they're the 1 and 2 seeds. But North County has to take care of their business. This Festus team is playing a lot better than what they were earlier this season. And so you've got to make sure you're doing everything you need to do. Hillsborough, they're going to most likely get Farmington coming out. And that's another one of those trap games, so to say, to where you just have to come out and do what you have done all year long. And that's run the rock, beat people up front, turn it into a physical knockdown, drag out battle, and then we'll see what happens after that. But I really, I'm excited for November 11th if we see Hillsborough and North County re-go round 2 back at Hillsborough.
I think that's where it's probably heading, and just like anybody else. And I see the edge probably going to Hillsborough. Even if they get Austin back, healthy, where he's on the offensive side of the ball, I don't think it matters. I think they have too much power. I think they're too balanced, and I think number one, their defense is outstanding this year.
Phenomenal.
So, yeah, I think they're going to make it out. And if they win their district, they would have to play the winner of Class 4 District 2, where St. Mary's sits waiting for their semifinal opponent. So, Jim, that's a good one too.
Let's see. You got St. Mary's, the number 2 team. Then you got Rockwood Summit that's ranked. You got Union that's ranked. My gosh, just once again, it's just a great district, and it's so talented. There's so many great kids, and we've talked a lot about St. Mary's. Eric Stewart and the boys over at Rockwood Summit. Once again, I've said it before, and I will continue to say it. Those guys don't get enough credit. I mean, this was a group at the beginning of the year when I talked to Stu. He wasn't sure where they were going to be. They lost early. They took that early loss to Marquette, 14-2 in rain early in the season. But, they battled back. And like I said, this past Friday night, they had to score in the last 6 seconds of the game to knock off Parkway West. And it's games like that that get you battle tested and get you ready. And I don't think a lot of other teams would be able to pull that off. And I think, what Stu and his crew has done has been terrific. And then you've got the nobody talks about Union team that's undefeated, that can just put up ungodly numbers week in and week out. And they're sitting there as a 3 seed, state ranked, and you're the 3rd seed. I mean, let's, this, once again, we talk about districts. This is just an unbelievable district, but it's going to go through St. Mary's, and you gotta do what you do. And this will be a lot of fun to watch as it plays out. And this district and the one in District 5, in Class 5 that we're going to talk about in a minute, those are the 2 districts that I'm really, really excited to see.
Yeah, and I think everybody wants to kind of see how Summit and Union are going to play. If Union's for real playing against Summit, I think Summit has the advantage because of their schedule and who they play. Their defense is really, really good. I don't think it's going to matter, though, whoever wins, because I think St. Mary's is coming out of that.
Yeah, and once again, there's no disrespect to Union, but it's something that I've always said. And you've heard me say, we've talked about, Park Hill Central for those years, in the early 2010s. They would always have, they'd win their district. They'd always meet up with John Burroughs when they had Zeke and that whole crew. And all you heard was the kicking and screaming. It's not their fault, but the problem is the Four Rivers Conference and, the conference that they're in, they're stuck playing teams that don't really get them ready to play teams like Burroughs. And in Union's case, to play a team like Rockwood Summit. It's not their fault they're in those conferences, and that's where it's good to see some of the conferences have really stepped up their game. The I-55. I think the I-55 has really brought it this year, and that's terrific to see, because if your conference is playing well, that means your teams are going to get better and be able to perform better when you start playing the teams out of St. Louis Metro and those types of schools. So once again, no disrespect, but I agree. I think Summit's schedule is going to put them in a little bit more of an advantage than what Union has played.
Right. And I don't think again, like you said, no disrespect to the Four Rivers Conference, but it's not really necessarily a football powerhouse, more of a basketball conference than it is football. So, and hey, we could all be surprised. Union can come out and show us all that we don't know what we're talking about. And that's just the beauty of the game and the fact that you have to play the game and not just look at it on paper.
Nothing will surprise me in this year. I'm just going to I'm going to be perfectly honest. The way this season has gone, absolutely nothing will surprise me. If we see upsets early, if we don't, nothing is going to surprise me, because just the parity this year has been unmatched in my years of covering high school football down here.
Yeah, I agree too. So now looking at Class 5, District 3, where we have the number this is kind of an interesting one too. Number 1 seed Francis Howell, they get the bye. And Jim, what do we have on this one?
Yeah, once again, Howell has done everything that they can. I mean, it's just terrific. They're 3-0 against teams that are in their district that they played in the regular season. Zumwalt North, they beat up pretty good early on in the season. I think it was week 1 or week 2 actually. And Joe Bacon has Zumi North playing a lot better. The way Adam Shipley is running the offense now for Howell, the way their defense has just absolutely just gone crazy, just stopping people. They're tough. They're going to be an extremely tough out. But you look there, then you look down in that other district. You got Holt sitting there. They just hooked up a couple weeks ago. Timberland and Holt played this past week to an instant classic. You got Cap City. You've got Helias. I mean, to get out of that top part is going to be tough. But then you look down at the bottom, and then you got Camdenton, Lebanon, Webb. Really? How do you load everybody on the right side of the bracket, that are state ranked? And that's the way it turned out. And once again, I've said it, and I'll continue to say it. If you win Class 5, you're the best team in the state of Missouri, because you're going to have to go through all of that stuff and those great teams in order to win a state championship.
There's no easy games at all. I mean, we show Class 5 District 3, and Howell still has to win against some really good teams if they want to be, carry their state ranking and top seed out of the district. And then, of course, Holt, like you said, the game with Timberland And hey, don't sleep on Helias either.
No.
They're pretty good. They really are.
Yeah, but at least in that district, you've got to go through Holt. Okay,
Right.
so at least and you're going to see. In my mind, it'll be Helias and Capital City. And what about Capital City? What a great story! It's almost like R7 from a few years back. A school that's only 5 years old. With a great football program, and there's so many great kids that are in that Jefferson City area. And I know we're not going to talk about Class 2, but once again, you might as well just give Ted LePage and Blair Oaks the state champ. I tell you right now,
I knew
that
you were going to
collision
mention that.
yeah. Well, once again, though, you got Blair on one side, you got Lamar on the other side. Ain't nobody stopping either one of those two trains. You want to talk about a collision course? That's what we're going to see out in Columbia. And that would be, if there's one surprise, that would be the biggest surprise that I would see is if either one of those teams lost, because I really think that's your state championship game if those two can get through in Class 2.
Right. I agree. And then we go to Class 6, District 1, which, as you said before, and we only have 4 districts in the state now in Class 6, and they're all loaded with 8 teams. So, Jim, CBC sitting at number 1, no easy task.
No, because you got a Kirkwood team that's finally figured stuff out. You got to remember, their 3 losses are by a combined 5 points
And
early in the season.
they still got to beat Lindbergh.
And they've still got to beat Lindbergh. Now you got to remember they beat Lindbergh a couple weeks ago when Dion Brown just went absolutely, goofy crazy. Set a school record 352, I think, rushing, 7 touchdowns. I'm telling you, if there's a dark horse, Kirkwood's your dark horse. And I think CBC was kind of hoping that Kirkwood would jump Seckman to get the 3 seed so that they didn't have to see Kirkwood in the semi. Guess what? That's what you got coming at you. You're going to beat Vianney, but now you don't have an easy out the rest of the way because you got Marquette and Seckman sitting down below that. And once again, a lot of people think that's going to be a terrific game, and I'm one of them. I think if those two can win this week and get that matchup, my gosh, is it going to be a lot of fun. And then you look, once again, we talk about the collision course. We very well could see the repeat of the Class 6 state championship from last year in the semifinal because CBC and Liberty North are the number 1 seeds. And, Liberty North is having an unbelievable year. They've been number 1 all year long, and they absolutely deserve to be. But I'm telling you, the bottom part of that bracket, I've been saying it all along. I think Nix is the best team in Class 6. Yes, they lost a couple weeks ago, but I just think you look at their resume. They beat Webb at Webb. They beat Carthage at Carthage. It just doesn't get any better than that. And they're so deep. I mean, depth chart wise, position player wise, they're deep. They're going to beat whoever comes out of District 2 without any doubt in my mind.
But speaking of District 2, jump in there a little bit. Now, Troy, they're the number 1 seed in there. But again, no easy row to hoe here.
No, you got a DeSmet team that's a 5 seed.
That's
and
crazy.
Rittner coming out of nowhere as the 4 seed. You got a Pattonville team that's playing pretty well. You got a Rockbridge team, as the 2 seed. And yeah, they, I hate to say it, they got their lunch handed to them by Hal, this past Friday night, but they're still a pretty talented team.
And Hal's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to have an easy go of it, but once again, you just look at it, and when I look at Nixa and I look at the teams there, Nixa's just wow. I mean, they're just a really, really solid team.
Yeah. And you win in one of these districts and you're in the state semifinals. Hey, congrats, you won your district. I look for, like you said, I think the collision course is coming. I think we have a CBC Liberty North matchup, and that's going to be a fun game to watch.
Absolutely. But I'm telling you right now, be careful for Kirkwood. Just be careful with that game because that is the ultimate trap game. Jeremy Macklin has those kids believing. Beginning of the season, you lost 3 games in the last 2 minutes of each game. They learned how to finish, and they're now finishing teams off in a big fashion. You have to be really, really careful of what the Pioneers are going to throw at you because they're playing the best football that they've played all year long right now.
And that's the time you want to be doing it.
Absolutely.
So, Jim, hey, it's been another fun week to kind of go over these games. Should be a fun week I think next week's going to be a lot more fun personally, because then we get to really look at some of these awesome semifinal matchups. But until next week, hopefully, hopefully we have some good ones come up, and everybody kind of plays through, and everybody stays healthy, so we can see those games like we want to see them.
Absolutely. And, good luck to all the teams. Good luck to the volleyball teams playing in sectionals and quarters this weekend. Pius with a big win. R7 making a move. Good luck to all those teams this weekend. But, yeah, this is a fun time of the year, buddy. And it's great that me and you get to talk about it as we make our way to Faroe Field here the last weekend of November, the first weekend of December.
Yeah, it's upon us right now, man. Jim, thanks again for being a part of this. I enjoy it. We have fun every week, man.
No doubt about it, brother. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of On the Move with the Caravan Football Preview with Jim Powers. Till then, have a great one.
Tune in for new episodes of Coach's Box each week on our Facebook page, YouTube channel, or the Streamline Sports app. And you can also listen to our show on Apple Podcasts, Google, and Spotify. This episode of On the Move with the Caravan Football Preview with Jim Powers is brought to you by Scoops with Danny Mack and Off the Rails Media. Life's more fun when you're off the rails.